No, you start recording when you start the meeting with him, but I want you to talk about how you think about this first meeting.
Okay. What I think it is in sections. The initial part is obviously just to develop the relationship, and that's the sharing the background. Then there's a point at which I try to make sure that we're on the same page about what coaching is and is not, and this whole part that's in there. And then before we get into the details, and this is the middle part that takes up the majority of the time, there's a point at which I just want to make sure that confidentiality and any other issues that the person may have, that we need to kind of establish this kind of baseline of how we're going to work together. And then really the opportunity for the superintendent to discuss the major issues, problems he or she has, and any specific concerns, problems that the district has, I should say. And then, that goes to a point of kind of getting out on the table the issues, trying to clarify, get down to what the problems are. I don't often get a chance in the first meeting, but it does happen, to actually go into detail, take one of them, and let's start actually doing it.
Think we will? Do you think we'll do that today? Can't tell?
It just depends. Whatever, whatever. You may say, if you want to break it down, you just say, I have I got a
certain amount of time.
I'm going to have to, we only have about 15 minutes because I got a meeting, got to go play golf.
Yeah.
And then the last part is kind of bringing it together, but it's kind of getting, for me to get more information about the district, everything from what the test scores are, your organizational structure, et cetera, and then also just exchange our information and talk about what the LEAD CT program is. Exchanging information, emails, phone calls, how we're going to operate.
Okay.
And then what our meeting, we're going to meet once a month, and that we're going to be in contact once a week, and phone call, ideally, sometimes emails.
Right. Perfect.
That's it.
Okay, so, because you started like you were actually in a meeting.
No, I was just talking.
So now you just sat down and you're going to press the record button and you're going to go for it.
Okay. Record is right. The red button.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bob.
How are you?
Good.
Glad you got here today.
Well, it's a lot of traffic. I can't believe Route 9.
It can be messy.
I don't know. Do you live in the area?
I live right in town.
Oh,
I live right in
Okay,
town.
you
So
have
for
to
me,
deal with
it's not a problem for traffic, but I know people coming in frequently complain about the traffic coming into our
I
district.
always leave a half an hour, so I got here on time. But
Smart.
I couldn't believe the bridge work and a variety of other things. Post-Memorial Day kind of issues, I suppose.
I used to leave time, but my job now, in the last, as you know, I've just been here now for the past month and a half, and it seems like 24/7, so there's no more leaving time early anymore. I just work 24/7, it seems like, and try to stay afloat.
Well, we're going to get a chance to talk about all the things you're doing. But I'm interested, what your prior experience is and how you ended up here.
Well, that's part of my challenge right now, is that I've been here for about 6 years as deputy superintendent. I came from the neighboring district as a principal, elementary principal, and I spent 6 years here as an assistant superintendent or deputy superintendent, and the board rather quickly appointed me superintendent. I was looking for my first superintendency somewhere in the state. Board got wind of that. My superintendent, who was a mentor of mine, decided he'd retire maybe a bit earlier than he planned on it. And really almost overnight, the board came to me and offered me the superintendency, which is part of the good news and bad news of my story. So I went from deputy on a Wednesday to superintendent on a Saturday. And
Is the superintendent still in the area?
he's in the area, lives on my street as a matter of fact, and I expect he'll be a positive resource to me in the future.
That's good. And you said your prior experience was as a deputy superintendent.
In this district for the past 6 years.
Yeah. And before that, what were you involved
I was a principal, elementary principal in the next district, and I had a relatively long career there, 10 years in 2 different schools, always elementary. And so knowing I wanted to be a superintendent, I tried to get on every committee I could as an elementary principal to learn about secondary schools. So I was on a lot of district-wide committees, which I think made me, at the time, 6 years ago, an attractive candidate to come in and be the deputy in this district.
Good. I've also had a variety of experiences and been, you know, a teacher and an assistant principal and then a principal and assistant superintendent and superintendent. And
I knew that you had
Couple
done a
of
lot of things in the state, so that's why I'm glad to have you as my coach.
I was also very lucky to be able to kind of break up my two superintendencies by going to university and then to a superintendency and then back to university. So I've enjoyed that very much. But the thing I found the most satisfying in my post-retirement is, in my retirement, I should say, post-working, is just the opportunity to work with people like yourself. Because I mean, we know several people. I knew your superintendent very well over the years, and he always spoke very, very highly of you.
Yep.
You know, so.
Well, he's a great guy, and we were great colleagues, and I think, as often happens, I think the board, and the board in particular, because most of the community just found out about this in a month and a half, but I think that the way I described it with the board is he's a very top-down leader and was here for a long 27 years and ran the place in a very traditional way. We were the central office bosses, and everybody else kind of worked for us. So I just think consciously the board looked to me because they thought, based on my 6 years here as deputy, that I might rewire the place. It's a good district, strong performance, et cetera, but I think that we have a lot of challenges ahead about more collaborative and participatory leadership among teachers and principals, et cetera. Because right now they're conditioned to fight most of the time with the central office. There's lots of I wouldn't say bad blood, but distrust between the central office and the other professionals in the district.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute,
Okay.
but it's so interesting to me that that's common. It seems so common to me. There's a pendulum. If the person is, you know, experienced, been here a long time, and fairly, you know, top-down, more directive. The board looks for somebody who is, and you seem to fit that bill very well. So,
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm not sure. I'm a little bit top-down myself, so I'm really trying to figure out if they got who they hired. In other words, is who they want the person they got, but I don't want to be too insecure about that, but I do worry about that, because I'm probably more top-down than my complementary role allowed me to show them, if you follow me. In other words, a lot of my collaborative work was only because, in contrast to him, it wasn't hard to be collaborative. But now that I'm the superintendent, I'm trying to figure out how not to sink the ship when I try to open up more collaborative opportunities.
well, that's a clear problem of practice, and we're going to get to that in a second. But how you can move from where he was to where you want to be. When we talked on the phone to set the meeting up, I told you I was going to email you.
Yes,
I did.
I got your
the
documents.
agenda. You got the documents that they sent you from Lead CT.
Did?
Which consists of the coaching model and then also the superintendent competencies.
Yeah, I found the coaching model to be a little confusing when I read it, in the sense that
Well,
I was really kind of hoping, knowing your experience, and all kidding aside, knowing that you've been around for a long time in the superintendency, I hoped when I read the model that you were going to help me solve my address my challenges directly. It sounds like from reading that, that's not quite the way it happens.
That's a good point, because I was very interested in what you were taking away from this, and it seems like that a possible expectation you had was that I was going to be more what I'd call a mentor.
That's what I thought until I read it. Now, when I'm reading this, I'm starting to think you're going to be more helping me reflect on my practice, and I'm wondering if I'm going to have time for that.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk about that, but I think that the issue about a mentor is somebody like, let's say, your previous superintendent, who's very experienced, and when you're talking with that person, you say, I have this particular problem, they share with you, well, you know, back when I was doing this, this is what I did.
Yep, that's what he normally would do with me, and probably still will, I hope.
And there's a couple of problems with that, in that someone from the outside, let's say, and take it away from the person you work with, but so somebody else came in, I came in and said, oh, don't worry, Bob, this is what you really ought to, you know, this is how I did it. I really don't understand the context. In a way, for those kinds of issues and challenges or problems of practice that don't really have an answer, you understanding the context is going to be the most important thing. And I think that you know the answers. My role needs to be more facilitative.
Okay.
And I'll kind of, through dialogue, through questioning, get you to reflect on what it is that you really want to do, what the problem is
Yeah.
and how you want to get from where you are to where you want to be.
That sounds really attractive. Hope we can do it. I mean,
Well, you know what, we'll have a chance, probably we'll pick it up in depth the next time we meet,
Okay.
but we'll have a chance, maybe in an intervening phone call, but an opportunity to kind of practice and try it out.
Yep.
And you'll see how it is, and what I really appreciate if you gave me feedback.
okay. I'm not opposed to that for sure. I'd be happy to make sure that it works for me, it works for you, because I've got a lot of people offering support, all kidding aside. In Lead, Connecticut, I reached out right away because I know this program is really going to be strong, but I want you to know that I have a lot of other people trying to offer support, so I'm trying to be efficient with my time, and so it's got to work, so I'm happy to give you feedback. If it doesn't work, then I'd be the first one to try to figure out with you what we should do next.
Well, let me just go over this just a second. I want to highlight a couple of
Okay.
parts of the materials we have.
What's your rough timeline for this? I want to be sure I have enough time
I'm
this morning.
available for as much time as you want, but I believe you told me when we spoke on the phone, we had maybe 45 minutes to
Yeah,
an hour,
so
this initial meeting.
Is that okay with you? Like a
Yeah.
30, and obviously I'll plan more time if we need in the future, but for today, I just thought maybe if we had 45 minutes to start with, so I've got to really be done by around somewhere in the vicinity of 10 o'clock this morning.
Absolutely.
Around there, if we can make it work. Okay,
No problem.
thanks.
Yes, as we were talking about the cycle of inquiry, continuous improvement model, when we deal with an issue, a problem of practice, something that a challenge is getting in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve, which is ultimately improving your student achievement. You know, I said that we're going to be goal-driven. We're going to say these are the things we're going to want to work on. Your theory of action will guide how you're going to look at developing.
You mean like the board goals, district goals, or?
They can certainly be board goals, but you know, there are things that you want to work on, and they may not necessarily be that. You mentioned something about time. You said you feel like you're working 24/7.
Yeah.
And so time management, using time more efficiently.
My own personal goals kind of then.
Absolutely, that could be. But it also could be, there's a major redistricting plan the previous superintendent had already initiated.
Right.
And now you're the one that has to implement it.
Well, let me tell you right off the bat that I know we're going to get to it, but what's really on my back right now, I'm worried about most of the time, is the fact that my role has changed, but nobody will acknowledge that. In other words, I'm in a new role. I'm superintendent of schools, but I've been here for 6 years as deputy. So my biggest worry is, do I have to wear a sign that say, "Hey, I'm superintendent," or how do I operationalize this board decision that nobody else really was much a part of? So that's kind of my biggest thing I'm worried about most of the time right now.
Well, we'll get to that, but just to be sure that this cycle, which you say you're
Yep.
familiar with,
Yep.
your theory of action is the rationale behind what
Yep.
you do. And there's, action steps, and we're gonna assess, and I don't mean assess necessarily
Yep,
with
no, I get it.
data, but to say.
That's how I operate. That
what
fits
work
right
we're
into
doing.
my normal operating way, so.
And our reflection is not just going to be, geez, how'd it go? But it's going to be more like, okay, what did happen that I can use and learn from, that will guide my leadership in the future? So this is the kind of cycle.
Do I have to worry about it all? Anything that I say to you? I mean, who do you report to? Or, how much of this is just you and me, and how much is you and the board, or you and the lead people back there?
Well, number 4 speaks to
Confidentiality,
promising confidentiality.
Okay,
Absolutely, anything that you and I talk about doesn't go anywhere.
okay. That'd be important to
Certainly,
me.
I would not be talking to the board or any person that works for you.
Do you recommend that I tell people that I have a coach, or is that something that's supposed to be confidential, that part, or secret,
No,
or?
it's not confidential at all. I've had it a variety of different ways. Often, actually, the superintendent will bring me into a board meeting,
Oh,
as a way to observe the board and your interaction with the board, especially new superintendent. It's an issue.
Okay.
And I'm introduced there or before the meeting. It's a very relaxed, very
Okay.
informal. But it depends what you feel most comfortable.
I'm just worried it would undermine my credibility as a leader if they think I needed a coach to be a superintendent after these 6 years in my prior role. I'm wondering if that wouldn't be perceived as some sort of, imposed support to make sure Bob survives. I mean, I'm wondering if should I be worried about that?
I don't think so, but you know what? It is a concern that you raised. So at this point, let's not say anything. And we'll just meet.
Okay.
Nobody will really know your secretary.
See how it
administrative
evolves.
assistant.
Yep.
See how it evolves, see how comfortable you are. and
Okay.
We'll go from
I
there.
think I'd be better with that right now. Because I'm still trying to get my sea legs, honestly. It's only been a month and a half in the job, and I'd rather not announce that I've got a coach right now.
I understand completely. Okay, I just wanted to be sure that you had some sense of this, and you read it, and the model is described here
Yep.
in its various steps. The second thing that was sent to you that is important, because if I said things are goal-directed or we're going to work on problems of practice, is that they should be grounded in some best practice theories. of
I thought this was
leadership.
really, really good.
Yeah, well, it was developed. The person who put it together and oversaw it was really has a great handle on the.
It seemed to hit most of the things that I've been wondering and worrying about in terms of changing roles. So that's that set of. Is that what the goals should come from? You're suggesting, or no?
They don't necessarily. They can come from this.
Yeah.
And what I would ask you to do as kind of a certain homework assignment is to actually, as we talk through some of the issues, and you've raised 3 already of what you're interested and concerned with, your challenges.
I don't want you to think I'm that worried, but these things are on my mind all the time. So
That's all it takes.
Okay.
If you're thinking about it, then it's something we
Okay.
should work on. But I want you to be thinking about where it ties in with some of these.
Okay.
Whether it's developing a vision or human resource management. And we can ground them in this.
yeah, that would be, okay, I can see that.
It won't be so, okay, what's your problem, Bob?
Okay.
Let's go back and find it. But you'll see.
Okay,
We'll
that
be
makes
coming
sense.
back to it, we're thinking about it, because these are the things that you need to be able to master.
I was even thinking that when I first got these last week, that this wouldn't be a bad menu for the board to see in my evaluation. They've asked me to think about my evaluation process, so I'm just thinking at the beginning, this looks like it might actually be a potential template for the.
It could be. What's the deadline for
Well,
you to
it's
get back
August
to them
now,
on
and
this?
I told the board has asked me to come up with a model to discuss by January on my evaluation.
I would suggest that you don't rush too quickly.
Okay.
Work through some of these, think about them, and decide whether this is, what is the process that would be used to hold you accountable for these
Okay.
items.
Okay.
I think there's a point at which you may feel like you're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Just
Kinda feeling that
stopping,
up.
slowing
I
up a
feel
little
it
bit.
now a little bit already, yeah.
Okay, the other thing on our agenda was talking about what coaching is not, is, and how it differs from a mentor.
Okay.
Just describe what a mentor, and you said that's originally what you were thinking this kind of
Right.
relationship would be. Coaching is different in that, as I mentioned, it's more facilitative. And then I'm not going to come and give you the answers per se.
Okay.
I will do a caveat to that after I make this statement. It's more, I guess it's based on the major principles that professional growth occurs when adults make meaning out of their own experience, not somebody else's,
Okay.
like mine.
Yep.
So you need to go through this and understand and work through the issues if you're going to learn. And the whole goal of coaching is to build your capacity to be able to do all of this on your own.
Why wouldn't it work that if you've done it for a long time, why wouldn't it work that you just tell me how you did it and I try to figure out how I could adapt my skills to the way you used to do it? Seems like that'd be an easier way.
I don't understand the context. I don't really know all the players. I don't know the details. I also don't know you well enough to know what you see as your capacity right now.
Okay.
But as we go through it, I'm going to be able to get a much better understanding of that.
Okay.
And most importantly, you'll get a better understanding.
Okay.
And the more self-awareness you have, the more you're going to be able to kind of process what is you're experiencing,
Okay.
make meaning of that, and then be able to develop your own theories of action as
Okay.
they will evolve.
So that's going to be different. I got a call from CAPS. I'm going to be assigned to, they asked me if I wanted a CAPS mentor through the area group. And my outgoing superintendent, who's been a longtime mentor of mine, is going to be kind of a mentor. So I'm going to have a lot of potential support people. I'm trying to be sure I get their role straight. So it sounds like your role will be different than the CAPS assigned mentor role.
It will be. And I think that the CAPS mentor will be someone in your, as you said, in your area group.
Yeah.
That when you go there, introduce you to everybody. You're going to be able to sit down. And when you have a particular issue, you can call the person up and say, yeah, you're next door. that this, I don't remember this happening. You have some.
I wouldn't be
long
calling
history.
you for that then. That's what I'm trying to clarify. Probably not.
No, you
For
can
like
call
a-
me on that. I'm just saying, this might be something for which you would just speak to the mentor. You'll
Okay.
see the person at meetings, you'll pick their brain,
Okay.
do what you said before. But those often are most effective when the particular issue or problem, where the solution is known. Okay, like, what are the steps of putting a budget together?
Okay, those kind of concrete
I
things.
haven't been in a regional district before, the laws are different, give me
Okay.
some tips, okay?
That's the mentor's kind of,
They're more effective with that.
okay.
But I also can help with that. The other part, though, is that when the solution is not known, the problem is there, then that's the one you really need to work through.
Sure, okay. That's what you'll help me with.
And that's what I'll help you with. So the idea that you need to make your own meaning, that I'm not going to tell you what to do as best I can.
Yep.
And there'll be times I'll bite my lip. Actually, Bob, I'll say, I want to tell you, but I can't. No, I
Yeah,
won't
really?
do it.
I'll probably push you pretty hard on those times.
But I won't break.
Yeah.
I won't break. But there are some possible exceptions. One is just time. I will share with you that I was working with somebody in an actual situation, and she called me 20 minutes before a board meeting and said, I got a board meeting at 7 o'clock. Here's the problem. I know I'm not supposed to, I figured it all on myself. I
Yeah.
just don't have time. What should I do? And I said, okay, give me a quick overview of the problem.
Yep.
And I said, well, here are some steps you can take. And she did it and called me back at 11:30 at the board meeting and said, it worked.
So that's not out of bounds then, just not
out
the
of
regular
bounds.
practice.
Not out of bounds.
Not-
If it's a situation where there's some real importance,
Okay,
you know.
that helps. That's good. That kind of gives me a relief, because I do think I'm worried about a lot of things that I might experience that I've never experienced before, so that's helpful. Well,
That role, though, is where I would take my coaching hat off, and it'll be
Okay.
more instructional.
Okay.
More kind
I'm good
of
with that.
teaching as opposed to facilitating.
I'm good with that.
The other is, well, I already mentioned it, that it's, the solution when it's not known is most effective with coaching as
Okay.
opposed to the other. Okay, you understand about confidentiality.
Yep.
You should feel totally relaxed. It will never leave this room.
Okay,
And,
that's good to
and
know.
people talk about all kinds of things, okay, that relate to their work. And it's a lonely position,
Yep.
as you know. You end up, there's no other superintendent of districts. Like when you were a principal, you could talk to another principal.
Right.
But this one, you're on your own, and the buck does stop there.
I
So,
think I'm ready for that. I think I've watched enough and been a student of the superintendency enough that that part doesn't worry me too much yet. Maybe it should, but I appreciate your input on it.
okay, the thing you were alluding to about some of the issues you're thinking about, this is the point at which it would be good if we got out on the table
Okay.
a variety of the things that you're thinking about. What are some of the district issues or problems that you're going to be dealing with, and what superintendent concerns do you have?
Okay, so I've been here long enough the district issues, actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not that worried about. In other words, there are achievement challenges, there are personnel challenges, all the things that I've been in the middle of for the last 6 or 7 years. So my immediate concerns are almost all in the area of adjusting to this new role and doing it in a way that actually suggests a powerful and better future for the district, because I think many people are fairly complacent about how things are. This is a place people think is working pretty well, and I know that there's ways it can work a lot better, because I've been watching for a long time and trying to be a loyal deputy superintendent. So I'm kind of worried about how I begin to shift now to letting people know that now we're going to be kind of developing a district improvement agenda and theory of action that won't dismiss what we've already done, but is in a more accelerated and more planful direction. That's what I'm most worried about all the time, and wondering if people will be wondering where the superintendent is, because I've had that leadership role as a deputy, but not really the superintendent. So I'm trying to figure out myself how to get comfortable in the skin as a superintendent. I haven't quite, 6 weeks, I haven't quite figured it out yet.
What would it look like if you were comfortable in your skin?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I guess, I think it would look a lot like the superintendents around the state that I know that are really that have the whole package down. They seem successful, their districts are moving in a good direction. So I think it would look effective and efficient, and I wouldn't be as apprehensive on the outside as I think I'm going to appear. Because most of my work so far, it's August, so I've only talked to people one-on-one since my appointment. I haven't really had any meetings or no convocation yet or no administrative retreats coming up next week. So I'm just getting ready to like put on this new role. And so what it'll look like would be, in my mind, somebody, you know, confident, comfortable, opening the door for collaborative opportunities to create the future together without appearing as though I can't do it myself. Like, in other words, I'm worried that if I operate collaboratively like I think the board wants me to, I'll end up appearing nowhere near as strong and effective as my predecessor, who more or less told people the future. And we kind of complied and went that way. So that's my biggest worry.
Okay. It's clear, except the sense of what effective and efficient didn't provide too much detail
Yeah,
relative
I
to
don't really know.
the
I
ones
just-
what you want to aspire. You know, as I said, what should it look like? But
Yeah, I mean,
Drill it down a little
I'm
bit.
thinking, you know, that I'd have a better connection with the union. The union would start to understand that I'm going to reach out to them as collaborative partners, because right now they're in defensive mode most of the time. That's one. Part two would be my leadership team, the principals and directors and central office staff, the 25 of us who are the leadership team. They would be operating in a much more highly engaged, providing input, feeling like they own the future with me, not just responding to my directives. That's the second part. And the third part would be that the board would look to me as their educational leader, as opposed to micromanaging a new and, you know, relatively inexperienced superintendent. I'm kind of worried about that. So I want them to treat me like they treated the former superintendent. And then I guess the last part that goes with that is I want to be a community superintendent. I want to have everybody in town know that this is the position that I aspired to, because I felt I could be a effective education leader for this community. Those are the big effectiveness buckets I see.
so let me see if I play some of this back and see if I'm understanding what you're saying. One is basic anxiety about your current position, feeling like you're not necessarily projecting the sense of being
Right.
the superintendent, or at least people you don't feel are responding.
Yes.
The next one is, how do you move from someone who is more directive to someone who's more collaborative, which is what you're interested in becoming?
Yeah.
In a certain way, that's a theory of action. You know, the more collaboration, and you could say, well, all the different things you could see would follow that. The other is how you can be perceived as the leader. And I think not just the Board of Ed, as you mentioned, but other people
Yes.
in the district. Your leadership team, for example, you mentioned that. And then how you can be a superintendent that's reached out into the community, and the community sees as connected to both the school system and the community. Are those like four different areas of the same issue?
Yep, they're all related, and that seems to be pretty close to what I was describing.
Interestingly, they all fit together, but we could also break them into certain parts. One would address the other to some degree. For example, if we're working on how you move your leadership style to where you want it to be from where it was,
Yep.
there's going to be certain things we'll pay attention to relative to the anxiety you may feel.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and that's the kind of thing you need to
Well,
say.
I wrote a 90-day entry plan that I just drafted about 2 weeks ago. That was one of the directives the board gave me, that I bring in a 90-day entry plan.
Yep.
So that might be something that would give us, you should probably see that. You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Nobody's seen it yet. And the intent of that plan was to address some of the things that I just told you I'm worried about. Now, whether or not I don't know who should be looking at it. I don't know if it's well-written. I don't know if it's going to get me where I want to go, but I developed it based on, you know, what I've read in the entry plan literature. So I'm eager to have somebody look at it who knows more about it than I know.
Well, you probably came across this article by Jensen Murphy.
Yeah, that's where I took it from. Yeah, that's actually
Well-
the article that I kind of based my entry plan on, as a matter of fact.
That's excellent. Well, this is the perfect thing that I would work with you on.
Oh.
So you can sketch out draft things.
Yeah.
You don't have to polish anything at all. You can send it to me.
Okay.
We can have a dialogue both through emails and phone calls or whatever
Okay.
in between our meetings.
That'd be helpful.
You can pull that together. But I'll ask you, entry plans usually are shared. So,
Yeah, I just didn't know when or how or who, but I'm not opposed to it, but I wrote it mostly initially for me and to show the board in January. That's what my initial intent was, but I understand from reading the article that sharing would be appropriate, but I don't know.
you might want to actually don't unveil it in January since we're in August. It might be something you're going to want to think about, the entry plan, as you start communicating,
Earlier even?
possibly earlier.
Okay.
Because you see, an entry plan does two things. It allows you to gather information, get a sense of as you meet with faculties, for example,
Yeah.
or selectmen or community members.
Yeah.
You're finding out more about the district
Yeah.
as a superintendent, not as a deputy superintendent with a narrower focus.
Yeah.
You're concerned with all of it.
Okay.
And the other thing is, you're projecting an image of who you are. And so
Yes.
there's communications two-way. So if we think of that, if you're in the process of gathering information, also projecting the type of leader you want to be,
Yep.
it doesn't hurt to start it when staff comes back in
Maybe
September.
for the next meeting, then I could send you that in advance, that could be part of our, because nobody else has seen it.
Great homework assignment. Send it to me.
Okay.
Raw,
I'll do it
whatever.
tonight.
I'll look at it.
Okay.
I'll put some thoughts, I'll ask questions, and then we'll do a weekly phone call.
That'd be helpful. That makes me think the other issue that relates to this one right on the front burner that I need some immediate help with is that the union president and I have had a bad relationship because I've done negotiations on behalf of the superintendent oftentimes. So there's tension between she and I, and I'm gonna meet with her in a couple of days. I had that in my entry plan, but no one's seen it yet.
Yep.
But we've had a history of disagreements, kind of nose-to-nose confrontations about grievances, et cetera, et cetera. And so I should have told you that up front. That's like on my immediate worry list because she's coming in 2 days. And I think she probably thinks it's just another one of our meetings, but I'm trying to make it feel like this is a whole new world. Let's push the restart button. But I'm wondering,
That's just what we should talk about. And frankly, what I think, let's see, you said you had
Yeah,
a time limit, but
yeah, I've only got
what we
5 more minutes.
can do here is, I'd like you to put some thoughts down. What you want to actually, what you want to have accomplished when you meet with her. What do you want to get, points you want to make?